Good afternoon. My name is Abdus and I'm the manager of the Student Success Department. This afternoon we're going to go over how to create a sustainable, long-term, effective lifestyle. So the question is, how can we be more effective? This is something that everyone would like to achieve in their respective lives. But as we begin with this question, we want to know what it is actually to be effective. What does effective mean? And within 7 Habits, the definition of effectiveness is getting the results that you want over and over again. And I'd like to add an addition or an amendment to that definition, and it's getting the positive desired results that you want over and over again. Okay, this is what effectiveness is. And so if this is something that everybody seeks and strives for, why is it that we have difficulty in attaining this? And where, in fact, does effectiveness lies? And so we're going to watch a very short video clip that explains where the origin of effectiveness comes in.
Years ago, I became interested in the whole idea of success, what it is and how people define it. I got so involved in the question that I studied 200 years of popular success literature, looking for the wisdom from the generations that came before. I literally looked at hundreds of books, articles, bibliographies, and discovered a very troubling pattern. For the first 150 years, the literature focused almost entirely on character, on what we might call the character ethic, on how to develop attributes such as integrity, fidelity, courage, compassion, contribution, responsibility, justice. And then the emphasis gradually shifted away from the character ethic into what we might call the personality ethic, which focuses more on techniques than on principles. In other words, how to look successful on the outside with no real attention to what's happening on the inside. People who live by the personality ethic, with its focus on externals and techniques and image, are like trees with shallow roots. The tree may look fine for a time, but it cannot stand up against the wind and the rain. By contrast, people who live by the character ethic have strong roots, deep roots. They withstand the stresses of life, and they keep growing and progressing. The 7 Habits is about developing from the inside out instead of from the outside in. By that I mean we give our first energies to our own character development, which is often invisible to others. As we cultivate the roots, we will begin to see the fruits. Others will trust us, our influence will grow, and the results will be enduring.
So going back to the question, where does effectiveness begin? As you can see there, the picture is a depiction or demonstration of the roots of a tree. Now, you don't know what kind of tree that is, and you don't know what that particular tree bears. Is it bearing fruits? Is it bearing flowers? That really, at this stage, is not important. What's most important is that we focus on the roots. We focus on the origin. We focus on where development actually takes place. And that development actually takes place within yourself. You, as an individual, the roots of your development is your character. And so just like we discussed in the previous workshop with dealing with positive teamwork, the development of effectiveness begins within. And it begins with what you see, which translates into what you do and the results. So going over very quickly about what we discussed in the previous workshop, the first practice is establishing the now, or trying to stay as much as possible within the now. And the now is a process of neutral observation about one's thoughts without interpretation. So as we said, being neutral is you're not taking a side and you're not interpreting what those thoughts are taking place in your mind. Similarly, we're not connecting or playing a tug of war with the thoughts that are happening within our minds. The second practice is positive language. And the reason why positive language is important is because it has a physiological reaction and it releases stress hormones that allows us to feel good and to think effectively. And the third practice is to focus on your circle of influence. And your circle of influence, it allows you to concentrate on things that you can actually affect, and not on the things that you either have no control over or can affect. So just going back very quickly, the power of now, establishing the power of now. These are the three roots of effectiveness. These roots allow character. It allows you to build character, and with character, you're able to grow and blossom into whatever tree you desire. So like we said, the first is the power of now. Trying to stay in this particular state as much as possible before we respond. And then when we do decide to respond, we use proactive language, followed by dealing with your circle of influence. Now, one of the questioners asked in the last presentation about when you're dealing with a situation that seemingly is the worst possible situation, how in the world can you put these practices into play? And so we're going to watch a small video about people who are living in very dire situations and how they were able to first live within the now, use positive language, and then focus on what they were able to influence to create something very, truly amazing.
Me llamo Juan Manuel Chávez, más conocido como Baby. Tengo 19 años y toco el cello. Este cello está hecho de una lata de aceite y las clavijas son de una vieja cuchara para golpear la carne y para hacer el ñoquis. Y suena así.
Débora es vista como un lugar donde se tira toda la basura, donde hay un mal olor, donde hay mucha suciedad.
La familia que acá vive recicla todo lo que hay en la basura y se vende.
Yo llegué a Débora para trabajar en un proyecto de reciclado de basura. Los recicladores se dieron cuenta que yo también era músico. Hizo surgir un deseo en estas personas que yo enseñe música a sus hijos. Una comunidad como Catebra no es un lugar para tener un violín. De hecho, un violín cuesta más que su casa. Fue la idea de Cola de hacer instrumentos con los materiales que estuviesen a mano. El material que más hay en Catebra es la basura.
Dos maderas lindas para servir para mi alma de cello y contrabajo y violín. El primer violín era un volador de vidrio de aluminio y el mango tenía tacuara. Y poner la cuerda a Fabio y empieza a tocar.
Y eso fue un continuo probar y probar y probar. Nunca nos hubiésemos imaginado que ese primer violín sería el inicio de todo un proceso que se transformó luego en una orquesta. 1, 2, 3 y... Fue muy importante la participación de varias personas, cada una desde su cualidad, de su visión, desde su experiencia, desde sus habilidades. Sin ese tipo de aporte, esta orquesta no sería lo que es hoy.
La música para mí significa todo. Sin la música estaría por ahí.
Cuando yo escucho el sonido del violín siento como mariposas en el estómago, así una sensación, no sé cómo voy a explicar.
El director me dijo para poder enseñarles a algunos niños en Cateura, no tengo otra opción que ayudarle a esta comunidad, porque es algo que con el tiempo puede cambiar muchas cosas.
Hoy en día hay 160 niños que están aprendiendo música.
Está cambiando totalmente a la comunidad y a la gente, pero para bien, muy positivo. Ellos sienten de que tienen el apoyo total de papá y mamá.
Creo que mis padres se sacrifican por mí y por mi hermana, porque ellos quieren que nosotros salgamos adelante y hacer las cosas que ellos no pudieron hacer cuando eran más chicos.
Yo cuando voy a Cateura, la gente dice, ¿te vas a Cateura donde está la basura? Y yo le digo, no, me voy a Cateura donde está la gente. Donde están los niños que quieren aprender. La gente se da cuenta que no tenemos que tirar la basura muy fácilmente. Y no tenemos que desechar a las personas muy fácilmente.
So there are not many circumstances worse than living amongst garbage. Living in garbage, growing up around garbage, disease, and one of the only ways that people can make money in this particular town was to actually recycle garbage. So how can one living in such a situation have hope? Well, as you can see in the video, they were able to change the perception first of themselves by living in the now. I am not going to be known as a people of garbage. That's first thing. The second thing is using positive language. Using language that one can establish a situation and a scenario where you're able to see the garbage around you, and instead of having the paradigm that it is garbage and worthless, the paradigm that you see is that it can be transformed into art. And then the third practice is concentrating on your circle of influence. You may not necessarily know how to play music, but you can collect the material that's required to create instruments. You can solicit people to come and teach music. And so this town went from a town to be notoriously known for being dirty and trashy to being the place where people go when they want entertainment. And they want to hear beautiful sounds coming from these wonderful people. So after we concentrate on ourselves, then we can move to the paradigm of spending time on what's more important. So as our goal being to be as effective and sustained effective as much as possible, We don't spend time on what's most urgent. If you see people, running around, it's like with the chickens without a head, moving to and fro, trying to basically find time. I don't have time to do X, Y, and Z. And in most cases, that is because they don't prioritize. They don't place, when they're planning their days, they don't place those things of high importance at the forefront. So when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is look at your phone and spend how many hours scrolling through social media or engaging in conversations that don't necessarily benefit someone. Now, it's not to say that there's a problem with social media or those other things, but that shouldn't be your priority. You should not be prioritizing that. That should not be the first thing that you look forward to when waking up. And so what we do is we establish daily private victories. So daily, what we do is we prioritize. And when planning our day, we focus on those things that establish our health. So what do you do every day to take care of yourself? It's a routine or a practice that keeps you healthy. Healthy in terms of your body, healthy in terms of your mind, your heart, and your spirit. So we look at this diagram here, and we can see that they're all interconnected. All of them are actually required to lead an effective, sustainable life, effective life. And so, like what we said before, when you find someone who's not able to be effective, and we said effective is getting positive results over and over again, most people tend to actually have the capability. So I can do X, Y, and Z. I can do those things that I need to succeed. Why am I not as effective as I know I can be? As we said, the answer lies in time management. And so we're going to watch a video that demonstrates how one manages those priorities in their life.
Your name is?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. You have a work life?
You?
Family life as well?
Mm-hmm.
Children?
Not yet.
Not yet. What's the nature of your work assignment?
I direct an international firm.
An international firm. So you really are interfacing with all kinds of people in the firm and outside the firm.
That's right.
You want a rich personal life and a rich family life. Do you ever feel like you get bogged down in the thick of thin things?
Yes.
Well, that might be analogous to all these little, small things that tend to fill our life. And that just little by little, they just accumulate. Now, your job, you can't go above this, is to get all those large rocks in the jar. Good luck. What's that one called?
Q2. Planning, preparation.
Right. Planning, preparation, prevention, and empowerment. Okay, the next rock she's putting in there is called relationships and family. You didn't look at that third rock you put in there. That's employment, some key employment issue, and then you put major projects here. I can't get it above there.
I haven't worked it yet.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Not fair.
Yeah, that's fair. That's called service, community, church. Do you ever feel like this?
Yes.
How many feel like this? By moving the little things around, you might squeeze in one more of those big major things. It's almost. Wow, it's good. You know, if it doesn't fit, force it. Here's something that's called urgent and important. It's a quadrant one thing that is blindsiding you, that it's your biggest client, that if you don't get back to that client now, you've given up your vacation. and you have no special block of time just for yourself, I'll tell you what you can do if you want to. You can take a whole different approach. You have a totally fresh bowl. You can work out of a different paradigm altogether.
Well, then I'd rather put these in the bottom. And then pour the little pebbles on top.
Employment,
Big opportunity.
big opportunity.
Important and urgent. Block of time. Those young children keep looking at me. Glad my husband's not here. Now I dump these in there.
Okay?
Okay, so how can you make time for more important things? I think the answer is very, very easy once, after looking at the video. Okay, so in the video, the rocks were obviously a representation of things that you actually want to accomplish. And the bigger the rock, the bigger the accomplishment. And so she began by placing the things that were of more importance first. And as you can see, the little green rocks were those things that were not necessarily important. They may add value to your life. They may be stress relievers. They may be things that you desire to do. But as you can see how when she began with the planning, with the big, huge rocks, and then she poured the little small green rocks in the bucket, those little green rocks actually started to occupy the spaces. So as you can see, when you prioritize with these big rocks, your things that you really want to accomplish, and then in between, the transition between doing something that you want to do, something that is really important, as you transition from one to the next, there's room for those little green rocks. So you don't have to completely ignore those little green rocks. You don't have to be, dealing with your major priorities in life and not go through your social media accounts, for example. All of it is possible. And so in order for us to be able to do that, we need to establish SMART goals. And what are SMART goals? When we are writing down how to carry out these priorities, we need to make sure that they are specific. They need to answer the questions who, what, where, when, or why. They also need to be measurable. You need to be able to measure the effectiveness. Are you actually meeting the goal of that particular thing? And we do that by answering the question, how will I measure my progress? And answers the questions, how many and how much? Next is attainable. So the goal needs to be possible. It actually has to be something that you can do. Can this thing really happen? Is it attainable with enough effort? What steps are required in order for me to attain this? They need to be realistic. So what knowledge or skills and abilities are necessary for me to reach this goal? And finally, it needs to be time-bound. So you need to set fixed deadlines. What are those deadlines? It's completely up to you. And so as we establishing SMART goals, it's important for us to answer the questions, a few other questions. And the first question is, how can you have fun while doing it? Just because it's a major priority in your life, just because it's a real huge goal that you want to accomplish doesn't mean that it needs to be boring. Find a way to make this thing fun. The second question is, how often will you do it? So as we said, you need to establish, is it going to be daily, weekly, monthly, how many hours during the course of the day? It's completely up to you. What resources are required? Now, resources are not necessarily computers and pens. Resources can actually be individuals. They can be family, they can be friends, they can be members of the community. When will you complete it? Is a very important question to answer. When will you evaluate your progress? So there needs to be constant evaluation of how effective are you in terms of putting this particular goal into practice. And another very important question is, who are your 3 goal completion coaches that will help you stay on track? Now, a goal completion coach is someone that you don't mind sharing your respective goals and sharing your plan as well. So the person that is going to be your goal completion coach, they need to know what you're trying to do, and they need to know how you're going to achieve this particular goal. So this can be a friend, a family member, colleague. It can be anyone who you feel comfortable with sharing this information with. And I say 3 here just because, you decide to ignore one, you can't ignore 3 people. It's really difficult. And if you think that you can ignore 3 people, maybe you should add, a few more, maybe 4 or 5 goal completion coaches. And finally, this is my favorite one, is what reward will you give yourself upon completion? So you've done all these really important, wonderful things. And yes, we know that the reward is actually completing the goal and getting what you're striving for. But a little chocolate will not help. If you reward yourself with something very small, it can be chocolate, it can be shoes, it can be a bag, anything that you desire that you are keeping from yourself to make sure that you actually complete this particular goal. And you can tell your completion coach that this is what you're going to give to add further motivation. So we're going to watch the final video, and we're going to watch a video of how this person actually puts his priorities into his daily routine.
Life can be tough. It can test us, it can stretch us, even push us to our breaking point and sometimes beyond. With all of the demands that we have to juggle, it is easy to become imbalanced, stressed out, or to even feel empty inside. And if we don't take the time every day for renewal, we simply won't have the capacity. We won't have the strength or the energy or the insight to deal with life's challenges. Trying to live without renewing ourselves each day is like trying to cut a piece of wood with a dull saw. You can't do it. To gain the power you need to face life's challenges, you must make time each day to sharpen the saw. Habit 7 surrounds all the other habits because, simply put, it's the habit that makes all the other habits possible. It's about preserving and enhancing the single greatest asset you have, you. It means regularly renewing and strengthening the 4 key dimensions of your life: your body, your mind, your heart, and your spirit. Let's start with the body. Body represents our physical energy and our capacity to do things. We can keep ourselves sharp in this area through regular exercise, through good nutrition, proper rest, and of course, finding time to relax. Mind represents our mental sharpness, our ability to think clearly and to make good decisions. We renew ourselves in this area through continuous learning, writing, reading, as well as planning and organizing, so our minds are not cluttered and we get very clear on what needs to get done. Heart represents the quality of our relationships. We can sharpen our saw in this area by taking time for people, by taking time to build and to strengthen and to sometimes repair our most important relationships. In other words, by making daily deposits into the emotional bank accounts of other people. And finally, spirit. Spirit represents that inner self that exists far beneath the surface of your everyday self. It represents your center, your deepest convictions and your values, your source of purpose and meaning. We can renew ourselves in this area in many ways, such as spending time in nature or meditation, listening to inspiring music, thinking deeply on our mission and our values, religious worship, or meaningful service. Sharpening the saw each day in the physical, the mental, the social, and the spiritual dimensions is a practice we call the daily private victory. I recently had an experience that tested my commitment to my own daily private victory. That morning, my alarm sounded. Usually I get up and exercise, plan, get ready for the day. But I was up late the night before and I was so tired. And I thought to myself, I don't have time today to sharpen the saw. But as I was lying there, I could hear my father's voice in the back of my head saying, like he always said, Sean, have you ever been too busy driving to take time to get gas? So I got up and I went down to my basement. I exercised. Immediately after exercising, I sat on my couch in the basement and I read inspiring literature for a few minutes. I then took time to plan my day. I started by looking at my mission statement. And then I reviewed each of my roles and the key goals and things I wanted to accomplish for each role. I got really clear on the few things I had to get done that day. It gave me perspective. As I continued planning, I also realized that I needed to apologize to my wife for something I'd said the night before. So I finished my planning and I went back upstairs. The whole routine only took about 45 minutes. After getting ready for the day, I went to my wife and I apologized. It turned out I really needed to, and she let me know that. However, it made a huge difference in how we both felt as we started the day. And as I walked out the door for work, I felt refreshed. My most important relationships were in order, and I had a very clear view of the day ahead. As it turned out, my private victory that morning helped me in so many ways throughout the day. I had to make a number of very pivotal decisions that day, and I felt this great sense of wisdom and judgment to help me. But it could have gone the other way. I could have stayed in bed and rushed through the morning and missed the opportunity to invest in my own capability to live that day well. I highly recommend this simple practice of sharpening the saw by spending time every day having your own daily private victory. Find a routine and a time that works for you. It will affect every decision and every relationship. It will greatly improve the quality of every other hour of the day, including the depth and the restfulness of your sleep. And it will build the long-term physical, mental, and spiritual strength that we all need to handle these challenges in life. So commit now to winning your own daily private victory. Even when it's hard, even when you don't have time or don't feel like it, and even when you don't want to wake up, it will make all the difference.
So, sustained effectiveness. In order for us to achieve this, we need to schedule our priorities. We need to start small, stay motivated by success, adjust when needed, make sure you have that coach, and ask for help when needed. So at this stage, we're going to take questions. So how can we stay motivated? That's really an important question. And this is where actually beginning those tasks with things that are really important and having a coach. So having someone, like I said, it's not someone you necessarily have to pay. So if you don't find the motivation within yourself to complete a particular goal, you can definitely find the motivation that's required and needed when sharing your desired plans with others that care about you, that actually have vested interest in seeing you complete these particular goals. Using these individuals. I put 3 here because 3 is a number that I believe it's not impossible for you to find 3 people who are able to do this for you. If you require less, that's fine. And if you require more, that's fine. That type of motivation outside, external motivation, can definitely help you. And also rewarding yourself. Finding little things that you normally would not give yourself or allow yourself to have when you complete a particular goal. And you identify that and you reward yourself when you complete a particular goal. So thank you very much for watching and have a nice day.